Welcome. Today we are going to be covering each of the following: student, staff, and course collections, as well as how together they become appropriately certified. First up is going to be me. I'm Ashley McCann. I'm covering collections 1 and 6 student data. So who reports student data? School districts, charter schools, intermediate units, CTCs, approved private schools, private residential rehabilitation institutions, and state juvenile correctional institutions. So all PIMS reporting entities are expected to submit student data. So what are the October student templates? So there's the student template, which is a cumulative list of all students in your LEA on a year-to-date basis. It's required for all student-related submissions. It's the basis for a lot of information, a lot of collections. It's the foundation for graduates, dropouts, and cohort. Then there's the student snapshot template, which is it's a snapshot that is submitted by the LEA, not like an internal snapshot. The primary focus is enrollment, low income, CEP, and English learners. And then the school enrollment template has to be submitted as well. It's a required submission with the student template. It tracks student mobility. So anytime a student enters, withdraws, if they have a program change, there's the 11, WD11, R11, WD12, R12, etc. And then the programs fact template tracks program participation if you have any of those reportable programs that are in, I forget which appendix. So what is reported? So it's the students who are educated by the LEA for 1 or more classes on the first business day in October. We say that because it could be October 1, 2, or 3. It depends which day, like if the first falls on a weekend, if it's a Sunday, then the snapshot would be the 2nd. If the first is a Saturday, it would be the 3rd. So it's always one of those 3 days. And then students taught by the LEA's teachers at an offsite location. So this could be an IU rented space in a district building. That classroom is still considered part of the IU. So that would be the IU students. And then students referred to a non-PIMS reporting entity. Those students are reported at Quad 9. So one of the important fields in the October 1 student snapshot template is academic disadvantage status code. That's field 88. This indicates the economically disadvantaged status of a student. It's used for the official low income count for teacher loan forgiveness program. So it's really important to the teachers at your LEA. You should not use the economic status food program participant field for 33 to determine low income because it may not be accurate based on if you are a CEP school or not. Some data sources that are available to determine economically disadvantaged students are TANF cases, census poor, Medicaid, children living in institutions for the neglected or delinquent, or children living in foster homes. If this data is not available, non-CEP schools can use the most recent reliable data available at the time of determination, such as free and reduced price lunch eligibility. The reason CEP schools cannot use this is because all students get free lunch. So moving on to food program eligibility, field 131. As I just said, CEP schools should report all of their students as food program eligible regardless of their economic status, which means that you cannot use free and reduced lunch eligibility when determining your students. And then non-CEP schools are to report students as eligible only if they are eligible to participate in the free or reduced price lunch program. I have a little flow chart here. So are you a CEP school? Yes, no. Tells you how to report the food program eligible field, and then field 33 and field 88. So for economically disadvantaged status, that should be coded on each individual student, because you're not every student who is in a CEP school, just because they are receiving free lunch does not mean that they are actually economically disadvantaged. And that percentage actually does matter. We will probably flag you if you're at 100% just to double check, make sure that everything that you're reporting is accurate. And then again, with food program participant, field 33, in most cases, yes, all of your students at your CEP school are taking advantage of that free lunch. But if there is a case where you have students who do not ever participate, you can code those students as N for non-participant. This was a big thing this year for cyber programs. So if your students are in a cyber program, they should be reported by the sending LEA. The resident students who are attending a cyber program should be reported at the school that they would attend if they were not in a cyber program. And then non-resident students would be reported by the sending LEA at the school that they would attend otherwise. Again, this is not the same as a cyber charter school, because cyber charter schools have their own AUN and they take responsibility for reporting their students. Alternative education for disruptive youth, AEDY programs. So programs are considered extensions of the LEA. So the LEA is responsible for the student regardless of the program location. And because of this, students should be reported at the school number that they would attend if they were not in an AEDY program. And then in the program's facts template, since they're in an AEDY program and those are reportable programs, you would report those students in there as well. Yeah, the reason that it's an extension of the LEA, it's expected to be a temporary placement. So they should not be reported at quad 9. They shouldn't be withdrawn. Yeah. So then we have alternate education students. These are not AEDY programs. These are students in a PRRI, an APS, quarter agency placed, students educated in detention centers, residential treatment facilities, day treatment, partial hospitalization. The PRRI or APS will report the students with the correct district of residence and school number of residence, so that when it comes to accountability and everything, they will be attributed back to their home district. And if the school that the student, or the alternate education that the student is being sent to is not a PIMS reporting entity, then the sending LEA will report those students at quad 9. So for special education, that's field 38 on the student and student snapshot templates. It's important that you report the students in the grade level that is on their IEP. Students should not be reported at the grade level that they, quote, should be in because of their age or the number of years that they've been in school. It's important that it matches the IEP. And then for field 38, the options are Y. So yes, current IEP. It doesn't matter if you maintain the IEP. If you know the student has an IEP, then you should be reporting field 38 as Y. And then if they exited their IEP less than 2 years ago, you would report them with an E. And if they exited greater than 2 years ago, or they just were never special ed, never had an IEP, you would report them with an N. So approved private school students. This guidance has been more focused on over the past 2 years, I think. So students who attend what is considered an approved private school, so they share an AUN with the non-approved private school part of that school. And it all depends on funding. So students who are 4010 funded are considered students at the APS. They are receiving 100% of their services at the APS and are 4010 funded, then they should be reported to PIMS by the APS on 10-1. The referring LEA, which is typically the school district of residence, will report these students in the student template with a Y in special ed referral and the AUN of the APS in 217. So then there are the non-4010 funded students, though, the students who the sending LEA, so you send them to this quote APS, but if they're not 4010 funded, then you're sending them to a non-PIMS reporting entity because they may not report these students to PIMS because they're not publicly funded. So this is not a PIMS reporting entity, and they should be reported by the sending LEA at school number quad 9 with special ed referral no, and the AUN of enrollment will be the same as field 1, so the submitting AUN. And then these students will be in the October student snapshot for the sending LEA only. Next, I'll talk about English learners. So field 41 of the student and student snapshot templates collects the student's EL status. So there are 2 for current L, 1, that's 01 and 06. And then we track the first 4 years of monitoring, former L exited and in first, second, third, or fourth year of monitoring. Former L exited and no longer monitored, which cannot happen until after the fourth year of monitoring, or 99 never L. Also, English learners, field 45 is LIEP program type. So this is basically how they receive their EL services. And then, so reporting student gender, this is in the PIMS manual, I believe. It's in the October student how-to guide. A student or a parent may request change for a student's listed gender, first name or middle name on their records. If this occurs, the LEA may report the student's preferred information, but first the change has to be made in PA Secure ID because you cannot upload to PIMS with different data in those data fields because it looks back to PA Secure ID and it will throw errors and we won't let that pass. So once the change is made in PA Secure ID, then you update it in your SIS and you upload a student file. As long as the name and the gender and all the other stuff matches, then it should go through just fine. A student's PA Secure ID will not be changed. We won't create a new PA Secure ID because they're changing their name and gender. So the school enrollment template, school enrollment records are required for all students reported by CTCs, except the following: if they have an S or J in grad status, or if they are adult affidavit program students. For all other LEA types, they must submit school enrollment records, except same as above, grad status code S or J, where student template field 167 special ed referral is Y, because you're indicating to us that the student is not enrolled with you. They are receiving 100% of their special ed services at another PIMS reporting entity. So they will have school enrollment records at that LEA. And then where student template field 217 is not the same as the submitting AUA. And my gosh. So this is just a quick show of what Appendix E of PIMS Manual Volume 2 shows you. It's the acceptable, school enrollment codes. So there's EO1, EO5, EO6. Those two are used by CTCs, and it's dependent upon if they provide primary academics or not. And then R11, R12 are, like program changes. For some reason, they need a new calendar for child accounting. And then I mentioned this last week. at the Q&A, but for WD11, it won't change full academic year for assessment because the student is not changing school number, but the R12 will affect full academic year because the school number is being changed. And then here are the withdrawal codes. There's some dropout codes, transferred to another public LEA, transferred to private or non-public, and then graduated. Unfortunately, student was deceased. Student enrolled but did not show. And again, the WD11 and 12 are for program changes, etc., that need a different calendar. Next, I will cover mobility code. So this is field 90. So there are 3 options here. So there's A, which means no show dropout, never educated by your LEA this school year. Mobility code B is in most cases for a summer transfer that was never educated by your LEA this school year. However, if a student was supposed to transfer into your LEA, you requested records, so you E01 enrolled them, you could use mobility code B to withdraw them back to their prior district if they ended up going back to their prior district. And then mobility code C is never educated at this LEA during the reporting school year, but still enrolled at this LEA. So there are a few cases where that may happen. So special ed student not being educated at your LEA during this year because they're educated at another PIMS reporting entity, but you have to report them, or special ed referral students who are reported to a non-PIMS reporting entity that your LEA reports at Quad 9. There's some DQE rules around these. So for mobility code A, it has to be one of the, I think these are all the dropout codes. Yeah, they're all the dropout codes. And then mobility code B is the transfer codes. So T for another PIMS reporting entity, or L, private school, out of state, out of country, left PA public education. And then C is other, so students who were never educated but have to be reported. The only one that is acceptable in October 1 is mobility code C. So why is this data reported? Well, it's mandated by state and federal regulations. It's used for the Act 82 building level score, which you may know as SPP in the past. Published report assessing school success, no appeals. So you can't appeal the data once it's finalized. It's also used for ESSA and the Future Ready PA Index, which is the public facing report card. That's a dashboard approach. So the low income data comes from here. Your gifted numbers that display on these dashboards all comes from the 10-1 student snapshot. Yeah. So I just wanted to cover the data quality engine. So there's data validations in File Manager and Batch Manager. It improves the data quality prior to entering the PIMS warehouse so that we don't have to do cleanup after the fact. And it creates consistency between PIMS data collection. You can see the data quality engine rules from the homepage of the PIMS application. Beside open collections, you'll see a button that says View DQE rules. And when you open this page, it displays the rules that are executed in File Manager and then in Batch Manager. Some common errors for the student uploads are key fields. So PIMS templates have a code column. The code K is a key field indicator. The data in PIMS cannot be overwritten when the code is K. You'll find that there are updatable fields, so you don't have to ask for a deletion for if you're updating just those fields. But if you're trying to update something that is coded as a K, you will have to ask for that record to be deleted first. More common errors, grade 9 entry. So this is a big one. So that's field 97. There's PIMS reports around grade 9 entry, so you can look up students that transfer into your LEA. You can see what PD suggests that you use for grade 9 entry if you don't find that directly on like their transcripts. But either way, it's the first time that a student enters grade 9. We get some requests for changing the grade 9 entry date because the student is repeating grade 9, but that will never be approved. It's always going to be the first time a student enters grade 9. And then grade 9 entry range. So this error warning shows up because you're submitting a student who did repeat 9th grade. So when we look at their the student's current grade, if you're reporting them in grade 9 this year, but their grade 9 entry was last year, it's looking at the fact that you're reporting grade 9 this year, so it's expecting to have a grade 9 entry of this year, although you have it for last year accurately. That is fine. You just have to put in a data exception request. We review every single one of these. Another common error is grade versus age. So we have a table in the background that looks at the expected age ranges for grades. And sometimes these are okay. A lot of the time it's because the student was actually a student with an IEP, a special ed student, but they didn't have field 38 coded as Y, because that will, I think it's 3 years, will allow a 3-year differential for the age. Another error, school number of residents. So that's field 165. So the guidance on this one is the district of residence that you report in field 117, school number of residents, field 165, must be the school that the student would attend within the district of residence based on grade alone. So if you're reporting that student in grade 3, the school number of residents that you report must be the school in Edna that has grade 3 within the district of residence. Another common error that we see is EL status. And I said earlier that you can't go to no longer monitored until you go through 4th year monitoring. And this is why you have to go through 1st year monitoring to get to 2nd year monitoring. You have to be in 1st year to get to 2nd year. Anyway, so these are the rules. There's expected sequences. However, students can be placed back in a status of 0-1 if they are evaluated and determined that they need to go back to being a current English learner. Another error is the validation of student and student snapshot templates against PA Secure ID. I talked about this earlier as well. There's the last name, date of birth, gender, it all has to match. You can't just tell us that somebody else got it wrong. If it's a student who left your LEA and you've already reported them as a transfer, you can stop uploading them to avoid this error. Another error that we come across is the school enrollment template delete process. So PD will not delete the incorrect data that you put into PIMS. There's way too much room for error. So we ask that you do that. So you can upload the incorrect data, the I don't know, the EO1 with the wrong date. You realize the student actually started a week later. So you would upload the wrong date, everything the way it appears that you uploaded it the first time. But in field 8, it's a comment field. You would put delete in all capital letters. That will remove that bad record. And then at least one line underneath, you can upload the corrected date, this can be in the same file. You don't have to do 2 separate uploads. As long as they are in the appropriate order, it will fix the data for you. Some more errors that we get, overlapping codes. So like I said, if you have an EO1 of September 2nd, but the student didn't actually start with you till September 9th, you can't just upload another EO1 because you're going to get errors. You have to go through that delete process first, because you can't have 2 enrollments in a row. You can't have 2 withdrawals in a row. It's entry, withdrawal, entry, withdrawal. So another one, grade level or school number change process. A student who changes grade level or school within the LEA should use the appropriate WD W11 WD11 R11 or WD12 R12. The 11s, the way that I always remember it is it's 1-to-1. So 11, 1, 1. It just, they stay at the same school. And then 12, 1, they go to another one. So 1, 2. That's just me personally. But yes, the withdrawal has to be uploaded first, and it's expecting to see an R record after. Another error that we often see, the special ed referral Y process. So if a student starts the school year, educated, as usual, and then there is a change in the IEP and they're going to be referred somewhere else, the student has to be withdrawn from the school that was that the student was attending before. And this can all happen in the same upload. If you WD02 the student from the school number that they were attending, and in the same upload, you will change special ed referral to Y, change the school number to quad 9, and a blank grad status. I know it sounds like you'll get errors because you're uploading a WD02 without the T in grad status, but because it has the special ed referral Y, it should overlook the grad status. So yeah. And then again, students with a special ed referral Y cannot be uploaded in the October student snapshot because, again, as I mentioned, reporting a special ed referral Y is indicating that your student is receiving 100% of their services at another PIMS reporting entity. So PIMS reports for student and student snapshot. There's validation reports. They can be run after each successful submission to PIMS. So you don't have to wait for a refresh to run these. As soon as you get your complete with your green check mark, if there's no ETL errors, then you can go in there, you can run the validation reports, and they'll just spit back exactly what you put in to PIMS. And then production reports, they have to be run after a refresh. So PIMS does a refresh 2 times every day, usually around 5 o'clock in the morning, and then another one at noon. So if you're planning on running reports at 12 o'clock or in the 12 o'clock hour, and suddenly you get like a login error or whatever it says, that's because there's a refresh happening. It won't let the reports hit the database while the data is being refreshed. So if you come back to PIMS and you want to run a production report, you can wait until usually a little bit after 1 o'clock p.m. and you should not run into those issues. But I put some locations, some folders for production reports. So there's enrollment reports, and then enrollment reports, ACS and enrollment verification reports, because that is where you will run your ACS. You'll find the duplicate students report that is very useful. And yeah, so I think that is the end for me. And we will move on to staff.
Okay. So for staff and support personnel, I'm Melissa. So I guess we will go ahead and move through this. So Ashley, do you still have, yeah, thank you. And first up, we're going to go through professional personnel and who reports staff data. School districts, charter schools, intermediate units, CTCs, and state juvenile correctional institutions. So then why? Why do we collect this data? This is part of the federally mandated reporting requirement. That is the reason that staff data is collected on October 1st. Federal guidance dictates that snapshot date. It is also used to update equitable access for ESSA requirements. Staff data is used to determine that students in low poverty schools are being taught by experienced individuals. We also use this to track the trends in local educational institutions. We use this information to determine teacher shortage. Those projections come from the years of service and even the birth date information, the demographics of our professional staff. And then we do use this to update PVAS system. They receive the termination data to manage the accounts, which is why we require the email address information. And we update certification services with the experience. The PIMS staff reporting is transferred to TIMS at the end of the year. There is typically a delay. I've seen some questions coming in regarding this. Staff data is collected in October. The transfer to TIMS, which updates work experience, does not occur until July. You will notice that I'm saying that it's work experience. This is not used to determine appropriately certified. That seems to be a common confusion. That Matt will get into a little bit later here. That actually comes from your course instructor information, not directly from the staff reporting. So who do we report? All active staff members are required to be included in C1 staff. A big one that we seem to keep revisiting is long-term leave professionals. We ask that you only report a substitute in situations where they're filling a vacancy, or we clarified the guidance a little bit more this year that they may be filling a vacant, or not necessarily a vacant position, but a new position that is created by need versus absence. And what we mean by that is, especially this year, we've seen a lot of external staff being brought on board to accommodate virtual education. So that is a situation where nobody abandoned a position, so you don't have a vacancy, but we do want to see those long-term substitutes because there's a direct need. They wouldn't normally be there. And then additionally, when somebody leaves your LEA and from 10-1 of the prior year until 10-1 of the current year, we do need you to report that. And the reason for that is because staff data is technically only collected in October. So there is a large gap, and we still need to track what is happening with the professionals within the Commonwealth. So if they left anytime after 10-1 of the current year, they should still have records for the new school year. And then anybody who is contracted from other entities. We have had guidance for a long time indicating that contracted staff are to be reported. This year we kind of pushed a little bit harder to get more real information on these individuals, but the indication has always been that contracted staff should be included in your professional staff reporting. So then who is not reported? Day-to-day substitutes, we do not want to see them. Support staff, are included in their own collection. We do have an aggregate template for support personnel that is a little bit simpler. Security staff, they do have their own collection. They are part of the Safe Schools reporting in June. The one exception, and people actually get confused on this, is we have a position that is confused as a security personnel position, but it is actually considered to be an administrative position, and that is the school's safety and security coordinator. They are included in the professional staff, and they do have a specific assignment code 1998, and they are included for C1. And staff that are employed by another LEA that is administering a program to your student, they would be part of our contracted staff that we were discussing just a minute ago, and they should be included in your reporting. So which templates are included? C1 staff has 3 templates. The staff template is the only one that is available in both C1 and C6. That is a cumulative record of all staff for the entire year. That is the starting point for the rest of your C1 collection. And it is allowable, like I said, for C6 to allow updates. Sometimes you may have staff that fall into one of the categories of who is not reported for C1, but you may need them to be updated for PVAS reporting, or you may need to include a long-term substitute that is considered a teacher of record and needs to be included in your course instructor template. They must first be in your staff template. So that is available all year. Then you have your staff snapshot template, and that is specific to C1 because that is a point in time. It is as of 10/1, who is there. If they leave, then they're going to be included in your snapshot from the prior year with the correct termination information, but it is as of 10/1 only. Finally, staff assignment. Staff assignment is only for all active staff, with the exception of a pill position. If somebody leaves your LEA, you are not going to include them in your staff assignment reporting. And then we use that to collect the percent time allocated to assignments. That is what we are referring to when we talk about the FTE. We do get a lot of errors on the FTE for the staff assignments. Okay. So again, which template are you using? For active staff, they must have staff snapshot, and staff assignment. The codes listed here are what we consider to be active staff members. Terminated staff, we only want to see staff and staff snapshot templates unless they are in one of the pill positions as outlined in the October staff how-to guide. Terminated staff should not have an assignment. Okay, so some reminders that if you have an open school and you are reporting students, we are expecting to see staff data for you. We require each staff member to have a valid PPID. That is available for anybody. So it is not exclusive to teachers. If you have somebody in your LEA that you would consider a professional staff member, even if they don't have a teaching certificate, they can sign up for an account on TIMS and they will receive a PPID. For individuals that are using contracted staff members that maybe are out of state, they also can receive a PPID. It is not exclusive to Pennsylvania. Just keep in mind that the name, both first name and last name, and date of birth must match what you report in PIMS, must match what is in the TIMS system. If not, you will get a DQE error. We do not typically approve data exceptions for that because it is very easily corrected. Corrections to the TIMS system typically happen almost instantly. So your professional staff member can get on their account and they can make the corrections. If you have issues, you can reach out to TIMS support and they will be able to help you get the correct information updated. For staff assignment, we look for most LEA administration positions to be reported at quad 0. not each individual school assignment. There are instances where we do allow a data exception, very few of them, but this is one of the things that will show up on our error reports if you report an administrator outside of the expected school location. And this is a big one. Staff assignment should be based on the job duties, not based on title or certification. We expect to see professional staff reported for anybody, any position that would be included in Appendix B of PIMS Manual Volume 2. It is not a complete listing. LEAs have different descriptors, and we could not possibly pick up every specific job title that is out there and available. So do not expect there to be an assignment code to match every title, to match every certificate. As I said before, staff reporting is not directly determining the appropriate certified status. So the assignment code does not necessarily match the number provided on a teaching certificate. The guidance that we try to give is that the staff assignment is telling us what a person does. A professional certificate, tells us what credential they hold. The two are very different things. And then finally, every staff member should have a single primary assignment. While it is okay to report individuals at multiple assignments, we do know they hold different roles. They can only have one marked as primary. We get many errors on that. You will get a DQE flag. And that is entirely up to the LEA to determine what is considered a primary assignment. You might have an instructor that visits 5 different buildings or has 5 different assignments, and it's all equally distributed for their time, and then you have to decide what you would consider primary or whether it's by building or assignment. Okay, common errors. One of the biggest errors, and it continues to be a struggle, is non-terminated staff. This is why it is so important to make sure that anybody that has left your LEA since October 1 of last year is reported with the appropriate termination information. There is a listing here, field 36, field 42, field 52, and field 54. These are all required to accurately report the termination of a staff member. And you must update that in both staff and staff snapshot. Many times people upload just to staff, but for C1 reporting, it is the snapshot that is really capturing this information. If you do not make the updates there, you have not updated that individual, and they will still continue to show as non-terminated. Let's see. Oh, and anybody that was reported with incorrect codes last year, we do have specific termination codes to address that fact. Reporting staff on leave. Again, as I mentioned, people that are on leave should be included in C1. We, in most cases, anticipate that they are going to be returning and they are considered the active staff member. Unless their position becomes vacant, then you can report the long-term substitute. And whenever they are on leave, staff should be reported with a full contracted salary amount. This amount should not be prorated based on how many months or how many weeks they worked out of the school year, and it should not be reported as a 0. We want you to report as if they were there and fully active. Years of experience and years of experience in the district. The biggest issue is that it is not the same as PSERS. Our system does not necessarily align with the calculations. Wow. Okay, that's okay. So for PIMS reporting, if they're reported in a prior year and they're reported in current year, we expect to see an increase of +1. It is not determined by the number of service hours or the days worked. So we expect to see that increase. If you try to report them as the same number of years of experience or years experience in the district as last year, then you will get a DQE flag. And I see a lot of data exceptions that come through, and it's typically people saying that based on PSERS, they did not get a year of service. Or also common is maybe they got a new personnel system, or maybe there's a new HR director and they're calculating things differently. So how I've been explaining it is our office discussed it, and we do not expect LEAs to maintain two separate sets of records. While PIMS is a little different than PSERS, you have to choose one way or the other. If you are going to choose to report based on PSERS years of experience, you need to stick with that. If you're going to report following PIMS guidance, you need to stick with that. You should not change from year to year and do one way and then go back. And you should not report based on PIMS standards and roll over your staff and then go back and update them based on a PSERS end of year report. All right, common errors for staff assignment. The first one is full-time equivalency. The percent time assigned is very important. And we do have an error report that will flag any of these situations. For the most part, you are going to get stopped by the DQE if you have a full-time individual reported that has less than 100% or over 100%. And most cases, you will get a flag if you try to report a part-time individual with 100 or greater. There are a few exceptions where I will allow data exceptions here. In cases where you are reporting your school safety and security coordinator, there are many times that this individual is also being reported for safe schools. So their 100% is divided between C1 staff and safe schools. And at this time, we don't really have a way to tie the two individuals together. So if you explain that it is the safety and security coordinator, I will allow that. As far as staff that are over 100%, there are instances where an individual might have additional duties outside of the normal workday. This does not include coaching, no extracurricular activities, but for example, if they are instructing AEDY in addition to the regular reporting day, we will allow you to report over 100% with the additional assignment, as long as you provide an explanation there, and it has to be within reason. We absolutely do not allow anything over 150. If we are seeing that there are 200%, typically that means that you reported duplicate assignments and either did not adjust the percent time assigned or one of them should be deleted. And unless you can show me that they are truly working 80 hours a week, that is not going to be approved. And then for part-time staff, we have seen, especially this year with a lot of the virtual instruction, there are cases where you will have individuals being reported as full-time where you're actually providing us with less than 100 FTE, or most instances, it is actually the salary that kind of triggers me to look at this a little bit more. Many of your virtual educators are coming in and teaching maybe one or two courses. And typically we think of a full-time instructor as having maybe 7 or 8 courses a day, maybe 37 to 40 hours a week. And so individuals that are not meeting that requirement would be reviewed or would be viewed as more of a part-time position. And we would expect to see an FTE that was reflective of that. And we do have details available in the staff how-to guide that explains how the percent time assigned is calculated for these part-time individuals. And as far as the duplicate assignments I mentioned earlier, when you see that 200%, the majority of the fields in staff assignment are key fields. So you cannot just simply upload a change. It is going to create that duplicate record, and the DQE is going to stop you because it's going to see that 200%. You will need to request a deletion and then upload updated records. This is a big one, reporting a chief school administrator or chief administrative officer. This is unfortunately overlooked quite a bit. Every LEA is required to have one chief school administrator. There has to be somebody in your LEA that has signing authority, and those assignment codes are outlined and they're made very clear. This is considered a critical error for staff reporting. We must have an individual that can fill this role. So you have to report one of the appropriate assignment codes based on your LEA type. That said, you can only report one. We do not want to see more than one, or you will need to review your data and somebody is going to need to be deleted. The safety and security coordinator that I mentioned earlier, this is a requirement. This, I think, last year, I don't know, they all kind of blend together. I think last year we brought this to light. This is actually something that was put into effect a couple years ago, but this is required for safe schools for every LEA. And it is supposed to be an administrative position. So this is not just a security staff member. This is an actual administrator for your LEA, and they should be reported at the Quad Zero location. Staff assignments that do not have a staff snapshot record. This shouldn't happen. The DQE looks for a combination of staff snapshot and assignment. They need to be together or it's going to stop you. So in the event that you are getting an error, or I'm telling you that you are missing a staff snapshot record, that means somewhere you requested a delete and you did not complete the appropriate upload to correct the data. So if it is an active staff member, then you did not upload the corrected records after the deletion. If they are terminated, then you should have requested a staff assignment delete. Terminated staff, unless they are in a pill position, do not have staff assignment records. And this information is, again, available on our professional personnel edits. It is probably the most comprehensive staff error report out there. So which LEA should report? The LEA that is employing a person is responsible for reporting the staff snapshot, and staff assignment. So we are constantly developing and reevaluating the delivery techniques for education. So when it comes to guidance for personnel, this can evolve with it, let's say. This could change. We are looking to expand on some guidance this year to provide a little more clarity for contracted staff. But for the time being, the best description we can provide at this time is if you are employing a person, you are reporting staff snapshot, and staff assignment. And please note that where things get a little bit muddy is that with contracted staff, employing does not necessarily mean handing out a paycheck. And then, okay, we're going to leave that at that. So for LEAs that have institution of higher education professors, we are still allowing them to report with the all 8. That is the indicator that they are from an institution of higher education. You do still need to include staff snapshot, and staff assignment, but we do allow that one record that kind of encompasses multiples. If you have multiple dual enrollment student and multiple courses. PIMS reports, as I mentioned, one of the most comprehensive error reports is going to be the professional personnel edits. So I would say that is probably one of your go-tos. You're probably the first error report that I would recommend running. Um, years experience in the district, also very important. And that, if nothing else, it gives you a comparison of prior year and current year and allows you to see if you've drastically changed, or why I'm asking questions when you ask for a data exception. Sometimes if it's one or two people and they're off by 1 or 2 years, I could see that maybe there was a miscalculation. That makes more sense. If you have 50 staff members that did not advance in a year of service, that raises a few more questions. So that gives you a clear picture of exactly what you uploaded, and it will give you warning information. The previous year non-terminated staff, that is very important. I would recommend running that because, as I said, there are many, many errors throughout the Commonwealth every year with this report, to make sure that you have captured all those individuals that left since October 1 of last year. If not, I will be sending an email. I use the exact same reports. This is where I get it. And then also, we recommend that you run the staff snapshot and staff assignment template details. That will give you a complete listing of what you have submitted to PIMS. If you do find errors based on these reports, then you will want to make corrections in your system. I do realize that for staff reporting, in a lot of cases, the PIMS administrator may not directly have access to those files. A lot of times it might be coming from payroll or personnel or HR or whatever your department is called, and they may have a different source system, but you need to have an open line of communication with them and communicate to them what exactly you need, where the issues are, and they need to correct that there, because if not, you will continue to get the same error, just the same as you would for your student information system. And that is going to be it for the professional staff. So for support personnel, formerly called SUPPER, is a little bit different. Again, it is the same listing of schools, or I'm sorry, LEAs that are required to submit. This is also federally mandated, and we report to the feds. This is, oops, sorry, you can go ahead and move on, Ashley. Okay, this one is a little bit easier. This is all of the staff members that would not be part of Appendix B. This is, they would be the individuals maybe considered the not professional staff members. You do, again, report individuals that are contracted, and this is as of October 1st. In the support personnel collection, the difference here is going to be the terminated staff, because we are not collecting individual information. These are aggregate counts. You do not have to include your terminated staff. This is exclusive of your security personnel, again, because those are part of the safe school collection. All right, so the categories, I'm not going to go into these in too much detail. Basically, it would be the typical individuals you would think of as not necessarily the professional staff, the instructional aides. Now, some people do have certified aides, and if there is a staff assignment code that kind of fits them, or they hold certifications that you feel classifies them as professional staff, then you can absolutely include those. But again, they will have to be reported in staff snapshot, and staff assignment. It should be an either or. You should not have individuals that are reported for both, unless they are genuinely holding positions that qualify for both. Administrative support staff, that is going to be your school secretaries, people working in the office of the principal, clerical staff. Library and media support staff. Next. Oh, there you go. Okay. So again, just a brief description here. It's pretty self-explanatory. You do have individuals that still work in the libraries, or maybe they work with the various equipment that is used by the classrooms. LEA administrative support staff, that could be your secretary to the superintendent. There's an extensive list there. And then the final category here is going to be all other support staff. And I've actually had several questions on this about what we mean by other, and it's exactly what it says. It's other. If you have somebody who is not necessarily a professional staff member, but doesn't really fit into one of the other categories, this is where they're going to fall. And there's a couple examples listed here: your bus drivers, maybe maintenance workers. And there are some instances where you might have IT staff that don't really meet the requirements for professional staff reporting, or you might have, there's a list of individuals that might be considered an almost administrative position in your LEA, but not necessarily professional staff. So it's really an LEA decision. If you do not find something in Appendix B, then chances are they will fall into one of these support personnel categories. The support personnel are reported as either full-time or part-time, and this is just an explanation of how we view that. An employee working at least 5 hours a day, 5 days a week, or at least 25 hours a week is going to be considered full-time. For part-time, it would be anybody who works less than 5 hours a day, 5 days a week, or less than 25 hours a week. And again, this is a little bit different than the professional staff reporting when we're looking at percent time assigned. For percent time percent time assigned, we are looking at that 100% kind of baseline. So do not confuse the two. There is more guidance available in the staff how-to guide. Support personnel, like I said, it is a aggregate count of the various categories listed, and full-time versus part-time. And the reporting is actually completed using one of our Excel reporting tools, which is available on the PDE website. It is called support personnel Excel reporting tool. So you just input the information and the tool will generate a page for the CSV file. There are complete instructions provided. So if you check that out, it's actually fairly simple to work with. The reports for support personnel, we do have a validation report. And then also we have the detail report. And basically they're just telling you exactly what you've uploaded, and one is a direct mirror of what you submitted. Support personnel is included in the staff ACS. It is all one ACS. So just be sure that whenever you run your support personnel details, that the numbers reflected there match the numbers that are on your ACS. Frequently asked questions. Honestly, I don't get very many. The biggest issue with support personnel is simply that people forget about it. It is, in fact, part of the C1 staff collection. It is listed on the templates, but Ashley keeps moving things on me. But yeah, it is part of C1 staff. So the biggest thing is, if you need to make corrections, it is updatable. You can re-enter the information and run it and re-upload the file as many times as you need to. I think, okay, we're good. And then if you have zeros, you do not have to fill in every single cell. The tool will take care of those for you. And then this year, brand new as part of the C1 staff collection, we do have the PIMS EL data, or the EL coordinator data collection. The EL coordinator position is required to be reported by school districts, IUs, CTCs, and charter schools. And the main purpose for this is to provide information to our testing vendor. So we do submit this to DRC. We use it to update the site list for Access for ELS testing. And then additionally, it provides the EL program office with up-to-date information so that they can circulate communications out to the LEAs as needed regarding testing and even reporting guidance, program guidance. This is a part of the C1 collection because we need the information to generate the file for DRC, but because we want to have real-time information for communicating with LEAs, this is updatable and is available all year in C6. So what is reported? This is it's up to the LEA. Most have one EL coordinator, and who is the EL coordinator is determined entirely by the LEA. There's not really an official assignment code that states EL coordinator, which is why we have added this as a separate tool to the C1 staff collection. It is more of a role, just a designation per se. So that is determined by the LEAs. It is broken down into two templates, person and person role. And it should be updated, as I said, through C6 as much as needed. This, again, is part of our Excel reporting tools available on the PDE website. It is the EL coordinator reporting tool. You can upload up to 4 individuals, and you can designate them as active or not active. So that kind of allows us to look at your information, and we do have just a verification or validation report so you can see what has been uploaded, so you can see who you have in there, who you don't have in there. But mostly it just allows us to track throughout the year when there are updates that have been made. Again, it has complete instructions on how to input the information. And because it does generate 2 templates, which is a little bit new for our Excel reporting tools, there's also complete instructions for saving each of those. And then they will be ready for upload.
Good afternoon, everyone. Matt, I'm going to do the course instructor and then go into appropriately certified. So let's see here. Come on, there we go. Okay. Course instructor is tentatively closing on Friday, May 7th at noon. I know that usually it's been open by now, but we've had some issues with getting this, the contracted staff updates and all the virtual courses and trying to get everything to align correctly, that we've had to delay it a little bit. Also, we will have the appropriately certified reports tied in this year instead of pushing into the summer after your data is already in and closed and we can't really do updates. So combining these two has kind of delayed our timeline, but once we are looking to next Thursday to open it for everyone in production and then have both sets ready for you instead of having them split. And then the ACS will be due May 14th. And I'll have an update on the ACS if you missed the earlier deep dive into PIMS reports. I talked a little bit about there, but I'll talk a little bit more. And course involves the school performance profile or Act 82 building level score now, the Future Ready PA Index, and the Every Student Succeeds Act. So who is to report in 2021, or what to report, I should say. This year we are taking all courses. We are out of the just reporting core courses anymore, and everything that's in Appendix A that is there, you should report if you have students enrolled in that type of course. We will be only accepting SCED codes now. We got rid of the PA codes. Last year there was a transition so you could use both that map to SCED courses, and now it's only SCED. We still have the PA specific codes for special ed, hearing, visually impaired, and the ESL courses, but everything else follows the SCED code. And this year, the Appendix A also has the definitions involved with it, so you don't have to search for the Appendix A and what the SCED defines each course as. So we try to mesh it all together. You have one location to look for them. Course list is Excel format for you for easy filtering, easy searching if you need to find. And it's no longer in volume 2 of the manual. It's right under it, its own separate link. So the 3 templates, of course, or the course template, the course instructor template, and the student course enrollment template. The basics of the course template we have this year is all courses that are taught in your school. We have put in rules into DQE that will stop courses being uploaded if there's no students reported, and the same for course instructor. Now, there's some issues on the back end of this, and that's why the ACS update comes into effect more. But your local course code is your field 27, your coast code long, and your state is the alternative course code in field 29. We've had some questions and some issues with it, with people trying to do multiple codes or not understanding it. You can use as many local course codes to one state course code as you'd like. We get a lot of general mathematics for special ed, as special ed has a big issue with it, not issue, but are confusing because there's only general mathematics, but some special ed kids take Algebra 1, some take basic math and whatnot. Local course codes and local course names can be unique to your building or your district or LEA. And then the state code can still be mapped to that because we can look on to both to see what kind of math course it is. The other way, though, you can't have multiple state codes connected to one local code. Some instances where we've seen this is when you upload, if you want to update the state code to a different one for that local code, if you try to do that, it won't overwrite. You have to delete it fully out and then put it in there again. So you can always do multiple locals to state, but you can't do it the other way around. And then some characteristics of these are the requirements. So are these courses required for graduation in field 30, and the course rigor indicators in field 32 for dual credit, field 33 for AP, and field 40 for IB classes. For course instructor, this is where we establish which sections are being taught for each course and the teacher of record associated with each section. This is where the second half of the ACS comes involved now too. You have course and staff dependencies. So if you don't have a staff person in your staff template, either in C1 or C6, and you try to upload them into the teacher of record, you're going to get errors because you need to have that person in your staff templates to be able to put them in the course. And then their section is identified by field 2 with the school number, field 17 with the supplemental course differentiator or semester code for easier saying, course code long in field 19, and then section code long in field 22. And for teacher of record, any active teacher you have, any long-term leave except for when the long-term sub is a teacher of record. So say you have a long-term sub or you have a teacher out on maternity leave for more than half the year, that's when you would report the long-term sub. If you're right on that half and half, but the main teacher has been taught the first half of the year and supplied the lesson plans for the second half of the year, you want to report that teacher then. That teacher was the main teacher, and he or she was the one that was the person who was defining the class for the students. But other times are if your teacher only taught 3 months out of the 9-month time period, say, and between retirement, leave of some sort, situations, then if you have a long-term sub in there, you would report them. And if you have day-to-day subs, the teacher of record would be the teacher who taught the most time. You want to have the person who's the most time in that classroom as your teacher of record. And terminated staff is reported only when the course ends with the termination. So if somebody gets terminated and you have somebody else teaching to carry on, the new person would be the teacher of record. If the course gets terminated with the teacher, then the teacher would be that teacher of record. And for student course enrollment template, this is every student associated with the course section within that course that they are enrolled. So dependencies or course instructor, because you need to have the correct section for those students, and then the student templates. Again, you'll get flagged and things won't process if you don't have the students in your student template, but try to put them in a course. Your sections must also exist in the same location as your course. That way we can easily follow the track from building, course, section, and student. And then there is the enrollment sequence. Use this to distinguish between enrollments of identical course section combinations for the same students. So a good example of this is if a student starts in the class, wants to drop it, but then comes back to that same class, that same section. If it's say it's a full year class or a semester, use the request sequence there to show their differences in enrollments. For deletions, we have each template has its own deletions, and it's kind of like a top-down effect. The smallest one being student course enrollment, that's your most specific. That's the one where you can delete enrollments. You delete multiple single people, students, how you like. Course instructor, you can delete all courses from a instructor. You can delete by just sections. And then course takes all that out if you delete a course. So if you look at it as student course enrollment is the smallest one, and then the umbrella effect where course instructor deletes the instructor and the enrollment, and then course deletes everything under that. When you request deletions, we need you to be specific as possible. A lot of things we have to go back on are semesters, PPIDs, if they're looking to delete instructors, courses. Sometimes they want something deleted but always forget. So we need as much data in detail as possible so we can get the delete done without extra work. So for course, you have a couple different options. You can delete everything at the top, course entire template, and that will take out your course template, your course instructor template, and your student course enrollment template. You can delete by school number. So you can delete everything from a school code, and then you can delete specific courses themselves from each building or any building that you need to. And this is where we get a lot of having to go back and forth because a lot of the semester differentiators are not listed when somebody wants to delete a course. And without going into your data or asking you, having that, because we don't know if it's full year, semester 1, 2, or the 15 other variations there are for that. For course instructor, we have, again, full course template or course instructor template. So this would get rid of your instructors and your student course enrollment template, but leave the course one. You can delete by school number. You can delete by PPID for all sections. So if you have one teacher that you need just to wipe, we can just use the PPID and just make sure you check all sections. Or we can do it by specific. And this one, we only need the course and the section. We don't need that semester ID as this one goes. It shows us everything for those. So course code that one, PPID, and section would help you there. And then for student course enrollment, you can delete the entire template as always. You can delete by school. You can delete a couple different ways here for students. You can delete by course ID and a course section and just wipe everybody in that section, but keep the instructor if you need to just re-upload that student course enrollment for that one. You can delete different students in a section by themselves. So we would need the student ID or IDs depending on if you have multiple. A good example of this one is with last year's 313 data that we were looking to get rid of after that, showing you have course code, course section, and then you list the IDs, and we can go right in and pick out which IDs and look at their, double check their enrollment dates. So these are ways that we can find out certain kids, if it was a full year class, to get rid of after 313, the 313 deadline last year. Yep. All right, courses of rigor. You have your dual credit or dual enrollment. You have advanced placement, and you have international baccalaureate. A course can only be one of these three. We have had LEAs try to say that a course is AP and dual credit a lot. That's not possible. AP requires a third-party exam to pass the course and get credit for it, where dual credit is passing the course itself. And however, the school, if it's either the student paying for the course to be a dual credit course or the school paying. So you can't have both of those. If you want to report it, you have to report as two separate courses. In situations where it can be one course, is an AP course where the student doesn't want to take the test. They still would be reported as an AP course. We've had people say, well, is it a regular course? And no, they still learn the information, and they still did the coursework for an AP course. They just didn't want to pay for the test, or same way with dual credit. And that way you're still getting credit for the students taking the class, but you can't have AP and dual credit as one class. Indicators are, I said earlier, field 32 for dual credit, field 33 for advanced placement, and field 40 for international baccalaureate. The rule is only one indicator is valid for the appropriate courses. In the SCED now, all dual credit courses end in 990, and the first two digits are the subject. And then AP and IB have their own unique course codes. So if you have issues, I would definitely double check. And to the right of Appendix A should have check marks, that ones that are dual credit AP and IB. So you can filter there by the check mark, or might be an X, and see which course codes are exactly the ones you're looking for. If you're looking for a certain AP one, but aren't exactly sure what the code is. Exceptions may be requested. Now that moving into SCED, it'll probably be a little more unlikely as everything's more defined and spelled out. But if you have questions about exceptions or we'll put one in, we will definitely review it and let you know. For verifying courses of rigor, good time to check it is right after you upload it and the upload is processed. It's not too late to do it then. You have the time to do it and the time to make sure it's right. If you wait before, when the Act 82 building level and the Future Ready pull their data, then it's too late to change. And then that's when you could get lose out on information and credit for those courses you are reporting. Here, so we have the course instructor ACS and the APIB and dual credit course enrollment reports are good ways to check to make sure you're getting the right courses pulled and verify. So the top one is the ACS. It's tab 3 when you run your ACS, and we have it as your school. And we filtered out this year. So if you say you have 20 locations in the district or LEA, it's not going to show every building anymore. There was a lot of times where somebody had a full page worth, but you really only wanted your high school to show because that's where all your dual credit and AP courses were. So we filtered it down. That way you're only seeing the ones that have a number reported. So you can see the first column, school, and then you have your subject areas. You have your dual credits, which ones count for dual credits for that subject area. Second column is which ones count for AP, and then your IB courses. And then below that is the AP, IB, and dual credit course enrollment report. You run that to show more detailed information. It shows what you listed the course as in your local codes and your local name, what the state code and the state name is, and then what type Is it an AP course? Is it a dual credit course? And how many students are enrolled in that course? And this counts sections are combined. So if you have 3 sections of AP Calc, they're going to be combined into one, but this will give you a general overview of how many students you have to double check with how many you are reporting. Courses of rigor for the Act 82. They're not counted in the indicator if they're not used. Dual credit is reported at the student's school and not the 9999 building. I think I missed a 9 there. And it contributes to 2.5% of the Act 82 score. So credit for each subject area where the student is enrolled in a course of rigor, math, ELA, physical and life sciences, and social science and history. And then about the Future Ready PA Index and courses of rigor. Part of the college and career measures, not counted for if the indicator is not used. Dual credit, reported the student school again, and not the all 9s for the location. Percent of the 12th graders that are enrolled in AP and IB, percent of 12th graders that are enrolled in DC courses, and percent of 12th graders completing at least one course of rigor or concentrator in the CTE program. And then you have the number of unique state courses with students enrolled in those 3 in one of the 6 core subject areas defined by the index. Educator effectiveness through course. It is checked through the course data. So as Missy was saying earlier with staff assignment, what Appendix B might show versus their certificate, that's not a, did I do that? Ashley's messing with me. They're not checked through the staff assignment, they're checked through course. So what teacher record you upload through course, that is where we will check the educator effectiveness through TIMS. They'll compare the certifications that are in the database with TIMS, pulling from their information, and it's based on the CSPGs, or Certification and Staffing Policy Guide. CSPGs provide guidance. They'll give you different subject areas, different types of courses or course subject areas, and tell you what type of certificates are under those that will allow these courses to be appropriately certified moving forward. So for the biggest course report update we've had this year is the ACS. Last year, going through the whole pandemic and taking data out after 313, we found that there are a lot of courses reported, or even courses with an instructor, but no students enrolled in that. And that could be from a delete, that could be from just an error with an extra course getting put in there, an extra section. So this year we have updated the ACS to reflect the count of courses and course sections that have an enrollment in them. So this is just a mock-up. In area high school, there was 200 courses and 785 sections that had an enrollment in there. And a good way to check this, there are 3 reports, one for each template. That is I think it's course template summary, course instructor template summary, and student course enrollment template summary. You run those are looking at the templates themselves. So if you want to check your count of courses versus what the ACS is showing for the number of enrollments in a course, if they don't match, you know that somewhere in there's a course that has no instructor and or no enrollment in it. And usually, I would say it's an and on that. And then same thing for course section. If you have, if you check your course instructor template summary and your numbers don't match, that means you have a course and a course instructor somewhere, but no enrollment in that class. And then this way, it will allow you to justify and make sure that you are showing the right amount of courses and the right amount of sections overall that have enrollments in there, and you're not just adding blank data. And this also is now showing without core content. That was one big update too, now that we're showing every course that you are reporting and not just the core courses. So you can see everything that's there, making sure you're reporting every course and have the right number. Now on to CSPGs and appropriately certification. So appropriately certified people are determined by the CSPGs and additional PDE policy through our TIMS office. There's subject-specific program, college program guidelines, administrative PDE policy, and job description may be submitted to the Bureau of School Leadership and Teacher Quality for a staffing determination. So under the CSPGs and PDE policy, it lists out, again, which certificates could be counted for each subject area, what certificates can be used for instructing staff and district personnel, but not students, and which ones you need to have to make sure your teachers are PA certified. And then career and tech programs, they're listed under their zip codes. CSPGs are the certification staffing policy guidelines. They apply to public school educators and school entities. They, again, contain the information you're looking for that will allow you to determine if the teachers that you have instructing your students are appropriately certified to teach those courses. The subject program, specific program guidelines are guidelines that are required competencies that educators complete for specific college certification programs. Educators may teach these in competency areas after becoming certified, and they're under the FAQ for certs. And then more of, I guess, a growing trend now, and the TIMS has updated it, is for STEM and computer science, since there's a big boom in those types of courses. There is an FAQ on the TIMS website that covers the definitions, the appropriate certificates for STEM and computer science, organizations that support, and to get certificates, given math and science credits for computer science. There's a lot of information on it. It's a great read to double check if your computer science or STEM course that you want to code, if the teacher will work for that. And for contact information, Karen Turner, she's a great person. She deals with she's on the TIMS side. Any certification question you have, any staff question you have with certification, she's a great one to go to. And a lot of people that we get questions from, I usually send to her because we just have the data. She's the one that can really make the determination and really give you a better answer. So anytime that you send a question in and I usually reply to it, probably came from Karen. The RA box is there for the certification team if you want to send general questions to them about your data or your teachers to make sure that they're in the right way. You can hit them up there, and then you can check the certification pages on the website. Did I go to? Nope. For staff reporting, staff that are not reported in C1 should be reported in C6 staff updates to be included for course instructor, which is where your appropriate certification pulls. Long-term subs, as we talked earlier, if they're going to be the teacher of record, they need to be in. Institution of higher learning will be used as teacher of record for those courses where they're used. As Missy talked about a lot earlier, contract teachers, it depends on the contract, but usually they should be reported by you, and where there's that big push to try to get real information now. We're trying to get away from the nines, because this data can make or break some LEAs of how they're appropriately certified and stuff. So we need to push for real data to show for that. Staff data rolls over June 30th. So the last day of the fiscal year, and end of year updates to TIMS. So after that, certifications will all be switched to the next school year, and any changes you have that somebody does not have the right dates or the right certs weren't updated, you need to make sure they're in there by June 30th, or they might not show correctly for the previous year's data. Staff reporting does not determine appropriately certified. And in the staff assignment, it sounds like we're a broken record, Missy. Again, that's the Appendix B shows certain things for assignment codes, but their certificate does not have to match that exactly. You go by what CSPGs say and what the appropriately certification shows. And ESSA appropriately certified status uses to determine in-field and out-of-field instructor numbers for the ESSA and federal reporting. For course reporting, report all courses with at least one student enrolled in them and report the content that is being taught in the course. This is a big push we try to do, and it should have never changed. You want to report what is being taught in these courses. We get questions where there's, well, what if the course doesn't have an exact code? You want to go by the definition. There, you might not have the exact name that you're using for your course, but there is a definition that fits your course. Now, courses like homeroom or lunch, those aren't courses. Those are homeroom and lunch. There's no instructional time in those. There's no grading. Study hall has a course code. You want to report it? Great. You don't report it, we're not going to go after you. There's no instructional, again, or grading involved. A lot of questions come in with support teachers if they need to have a course code. And it depends on what they're doing. If they are instructing with grading, if they're creating the content for students, then yes, you would report them as a course. But a lot of times, especially in special ed courses or gifted or different way, hearing impaired, things like that, these are aides and support staff that are there to help these students understand the content better that they're learning from their regular teacher. So if anytime there's questions, please shoot them into the inbox. We'll definitely answer them. But those are great ways to just remember, if there's instruction, they're creating their own content for this course or curriculum, and they're grading, that's a course. And make sure all your courses have a teacher record attached as well. So we have a couple of informational reports in appropriately certified. We have the instruction certification requirements. And right now in Cognos, there's two types. There's the all types where it'll list everything that's there. And then there's the course prompts. So you can pick a course, pick a subject if you'd like, and just filter it from there. When we move over to the new reporting system that is in a later presentation this week, this report's just going to be squeezed into one. That way you can filter it yourself. You can show everything if you want it, or the prompts at the same time. It's easier for us to have maintained the one report instead of the two. And then there's also your staff certification by LEA report. This will list every staff member that you have that has a certification and the types of certifications. It's just not going to list their most current. So it will show John Doe, who has his instructional 1, instructional 2, certs on there for, say, he has 3 different subjects. They'll show each instructional 1 and 2. That's a great way to check to make sure that all your staff are there. They have their certificates showing, so the database is pulling correctly. And then for your certification reports, you have instructor appropriately certified staff listing and staff missing certification information. For the staff missing certification information, this goes along with the staff certification by LEA report. If you have people up on here, there is something wrong with your data in TIMS. So this would be a great time. You find somebody on here, you want to go make sure that they have updated everything they need to do, as well as the LEA has. And those emails between Karen and the EdCert questions, great way to get in contact to make sure things are pulling properly. Sometimes we do run into a bug where it might not pull a principal, but we've had a couple of those. And if they're not showing that, as long as they're not teaching, that's not going to be an issue for these reports. But you can still contact us. We can look into it. And then the other one, the instructor appropriately certified staff listing. This is your main baby. you're going to have 4 tabs on this one. You have the first tab of the not appropriately certified, second tab of appropriately certified, third of not evaluated, and fourth of not mapped. Tab 2, appropriately certified, is an easy one. It lists every course that you've had a teacher map to in every section. It will tell them, that tab will say, these people are good. They have the correct certifications to teach these courses. And it will sum up how many sections, if they're teaching, say, 3 sections of Algebra 1, it'll just combine it into 3 sections instead of making the list 3 sections longer for each person. Your tab 1 is your not appropriately certified teachers. These are the ones that are either not appropriately certified, a possibility of coded wrong, a possibility of the wrong instructor in the course. So this is the tab you want to focus probably the majority of your time on. We have a lot of issues where a special ed teacher was coded incorrectly into a regular ed course. That's an easy fix. We can go in, delete it, re-upload, that'll take care of it. Those are a lot of the issues we have. And this year we've actually added special ed general reading and special ed general writing. That wasn't in the course code last year. There was a lot of questions about that one because people were looking for them. So that should take care of those courses for special ed teachers. But so go through this one, check your codes, check your instructors. Again, if you have questions, come to us. If you have questions about certifications through that, you can send it to Karen or the EdCert team as well. But this is the main chunk, and this is what will show how many are not appropriately certified. For charter schools in this one, you might look like a lot. It might seem a lot of people in there, but remember the 75-25% still applies even for this. So your data might look worse than a school district might or things, but just remember your 75-25 still applies here as well. So questions, bring them on, but you just remember that fact, because we've gotten questions where it's freaked out a couple people and we're like, no, you're okay. Yeah, we understand that at ballet, you might not have a ballet teacher who's appropriately certified because it's a professional ballet instructor. So things like that, you're okay there. But any questions after you see it, that's fine. You're not mapped will usually be courses that are the contracted staff or the higher ed staff, or not evaluated. Those are the ones that they don't have PPIDs. So we're trying to get rid of the 9s off that one and just show 8s because of the higher ed and get the contracted staff to have real data. And then your not mapped is the ones that usually are courses that don't have a full mapping yet. So if you see somebody on there, definitely send us a question. We check it on the full list every once in a while, but if you see it there, you want to make sure that they're counted correctly, let us know. We'll work with TIMS to update the mapping so they show. We don't have any control of the mapping. That comes from TIMS. They know the certifications. They know what course goes with what certification. So when you send us questions, we keep track of it. We make sure we get it, and then we have to pass it to TIMS. So you might not see it right away. And this report only refreshes once a day at noon. So if we fix something in the afternoon, or you fix something in your course data in, say, tomorrow afternoon, you won't see it until the next afternoon. It won't show up in the morning refresh. So just be aware of that some of these things for appropriately certified, it takes a little longer as well. All right. So for the how-to guide, there's how-to guides and other resources on the PIMS website. You can go to PIMS, the resources and documents. There's recorded webinars, manuals, how-to guides. The course how-to guide will be updated here probably by next week when we open course. So that will be there. The SCED gets updated with our update usually in August, but the national group that does the SCED, that doesn't come out usually till possibly October, November. So we usually push another update if they add any codes that have PA certificates matching to them. So when there's questions that come in like, I don't see any updates, or did you update? Usually look January, February or so to download again, just to make sure. And we always highlight those courses that are new for the year, just so you know if there's anything new, look for a yellow highlight. But those usually get pushed a little later than what other stuff is updated. So we put it in emails. It might get buried with 3 other openings or pins documentation updates, but they're in there. We'll definitely make sure on Q&As to let people know too as well. We have the Q&A sessions.
Interrupt you for a second. I'm really sorry.
No, it's fine.
We've got about 15 minutes left, a little less.
We're actually just at the end. So Q&A sessions are usually a weekly occurrence on Thursdays. You have a lot of people from PIMS plus a couple other offices sometimes jumping in to help out with questions and answer questions. PIMS administrators, you get these emails. If you don't get the emails, let us know. It might be spam or something else, or your email got changed in my PD suite and it just hasn't been updated, which either you or your local security officer needs to fix or administrator needs to fix. And if you have people that would like to jump on, please contact your PIMS admin if you have a certain question that you'd like to ask, and we can see if we can answer it for you. And then you got some emails. Oh, look, that's right, there's again. And support services from PIMS application support, great people. Okay.